What's going on, guys? Winnie the Pooh, Demon Hunter, Volume 5. And just to kind of catch us up to where we're at, we have a war breaking out between Snow White's territory and the Queen of Hearts. Now, the Queen of Hearts is the aggressor, and she has sent out her armies to go and invade. And one of the areas that they're invading is Humpty Dumpty's city. And so we saw Evelyn, along with Alex, trying to defend that city. And these three characters, who were, I just called them captains, they came in, wrecked everything. They found a certain item that they were looking for. And once they got it, even though they were whooping everyone's ass, they went ahead and retreated. And that struck Evelyn and Alex kind of odd that they would just simply retreat after getting that item. So they're like, okay, well, we need to follow them and see what that item is. And then we saw a village being attacked. And this is where Winnie the Pooh, Christopher Robin, Rabbit, and an unnamed turtle monk all where they were observing all of this and saw that the villagers were about to be executed and stepped in and started fighting. Now, they had troubles of their own. There was a character there who seemed to be kind of the right-hand man to the Queen of Hearts. I was just calling him the General. He is very formidable, and he whooped everyone's ass, and he was getting ready to execute all four of our heroes when the four of them got rescued by Alice and Tigger. And that is where we're going to be starting now with Volume 5. Now, everything in here is created, written, and illustrated all by Nicholas Mueller. So we have Winnie the Pooh, Demon Hunter, Volume 5, Tigger's Big Day, and that is also the name of Chapter 11. So we're seeing some aftermath after Humpty Dumpty's city was destroyed and attacked. Everybody's just kind of cleaning up all the wreckage, taking account for who's hurt, who's dead, who's alive, what's going on here. And so far we have 80 injured, 20 dead. And one of those injured is, of course, Humpty Dumpty himself. And Snow White is, she's definitely putting all the blame on herself. And it's not just her little council members over here, they're also putting blame squarely on her. Despite the captain trying to stand up for Snow White, she's like, no, they're right, this is my fuck up. And so the council says, hey, look, we need to counterstrike here. We gotta go on the offensive. And which Snow White agrees and also says, hey, we need to also, fortify our defenses for any other attacks that might come in. Now, not everything was a total loss. We do see they have a captured member of Snow White's military, and that's the General Man, or the Knave of Hearts Knight. But unfortunately, they're not really getting anywhere. He's not talking. He's just kind of staring at him blankly. And so it's like, yeah, we got a high-ranking member, but we're not getting shit out of him. So they're hoping that at some point they can get some sort of information. We also see Winnie the Pooh, along with everybody else, is over in the infirmary. And that's where Tigger is also going. And so we see that Tigger acts just like we're accustomed to seeing from the cartoons and stuff like that, where he just kind of pounces on everybody as he does that right to Rabbit. He's so happy to see everyone. Everybody's happy to see him. He's got a lot of energy and a lot of life in him. He's just he's an infectious presence, to say the least. And everybody's just like, where you been? And he does like a little dance. And it's like, oh boy, have I got stories to tell you. But he gets cut off. The captain and Eeyore come in and it's like, whoa. You're giving away too much information. Why don't we pump the brakes on that? Because we still needed to brief you. And so then we have a back and forth between Tigger and the captain and Eeyore about, oh, come on, we can let, Winnie and company, they can overhear all of this. And it's a lot of no's until Tigger says, well, actually, it kind of involves them. And they're like, come on, man. You're just bullshitting us so you can just tell your friends some stories. And he's like, no, I mean it. I'm not going to lie about this. And so we immediately flash back to a story, and we're meeting a governor over in Wonderland, and he's just the frog governor. What stories he might be attached to, I'm not 100% certain. I don't recognize all the IPs involved. I think it's like the Toad and the Frog stories. I can't remember, but anywho, that's not important. But this Governor Frog over here has invited Tigger over. Now, he's talking about throwing a party and enjoying stuff, and Tigger's like, well, I'm sure this is not why you summoned me here, so can we get on with that? And that's where Alice steps in and says, we need your help. We've had a lot of abductions by the Tweedle twins, and we see Tweedledee and Tweedledum coming over, and they're capturing all sorts of people. And though they are kind of stupid, they're extremely tough to beat. And so we see Alice failing in a flashback of her own. And she says that we're tracking them into the swamp, but that's where we're losing them, and we could use your help. Now, we have a team assembled, and I'm going to introduce those to you. And this is where we see Mad Hatter and Hare also join in. And Tigger's not exactly impressed by the zaniness of those two. And Alice is like, look, I know that they seem like they're nuts, but they have excellent tracking abilities. And so they bring up the map that shows, in order to get to the swamp, they have to go through these plains, but the plains are constantly changing. So we show one of those maps where you can kind of shift everything. And for any who have seen like the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, I believe it was the third one where they had that map where they could change it. However, the map is reflective of the real world events, where in the world, in Wonderland, that actually changes as well. So the map helps kind of figure out how it's going to adjust. And because it constantly adjusts, they could use somebody with some jumping ability to kind of help guide them to the swamp area. And that's where Tigger comes into play. And so as they're setting off for the swamp, Alice is just kind of explaining that Wonderland is peaceful at this time, or at least was, and there was 5 governors all in charge of things. And so we see like the fox, the frog, the toad, and the 2 flamingos as they make their way over. And that the world shifts based on a time. Now, we're shown a watch here, but we have a mistake where the hands just are not there. And we know that it's a mistake because they're over here. And so they're using this watch to kind of keep track of when the planes are going to start shifting on them. However, Alice's watch kind of stands still on time, and therefore they lose track of it. And we see that the planes are starting to shift. So, they got to get moving. So they run and just make it in time to the swamp. And Tigger, he starts smelling, and he picks up the smell of demons. And it's coming from this little cottage over here. They go to investigate, and they see that there's a necromancer who seems to be trying to summon an army of the dead to overtake the Queen of Hearts. So he's got no love for the Queen. Now, he senses that they're sneaking up on him and sends the Tweedle twins after him. And so a big old fight ensues. And while they're fighting them, they're saying, hey, we got to keep the necromancer from completing his spells. Otherwise, shit's really going to get rough for us here. And unfortunately, the Tweedle twins are able to keep them occupied enough for the necromancer to go ahead and become very, very powerful. But then a little bit of reinforcements come in. There's a little plane coming in. And we see that this is Piglet. And this is when Winnie the Pooh kind of interjects on Tigger's story. I was like, oh, okay, so this is why it involves us a little bit, is you found Piglet. And he's like, okay, yep, shut up, Pooh. Going back to the story. And we see Piglet is trying to make his way in. The necromancer launches a big old attack that hits everybody, including Piglet out there. And his plane starts to deteriorate. And he starts to crash on in before he's grabbed by the throat. And this is where I was a little confused as to what's going on. So he's clearly in the plane, but now you can just see that the necromancer's got his hands on him. and is holding him by the throat, but there is like no plane wreckage anywhere. And I'm confused as to how this all went down. Like, uh, I don't get it. There's no plane debris here, no like damage within the rocks itself of like an impact. Um, but the necromancer's clearly got him by the neck, so I'm like, something. There just needs to be a little bit more clarity as to what just happened. Because, yeah, we go from plane to being grabbed by the throat. So I tried to look that over a couple times. I just couldn't make heads or tails of it. So then that ends chapter 11. We're on to chapter 12. Who said you can't have fun? And so Winnie the Pooh interjects once again about Piglet, and Tigger's like, just shut up. Let me continue on with my story. So we see that Piglet's in big trouble here. The necromancer's going to start sucking the life right out of him. And so Tigger looks to Alice and's like, hey, look, we only got one shot at this. Hands off some holy water, and says, okay, let's make this one shot count. And so everybody starts to distract the necromancer to varying degrees of success. We see Hatter and Hare. They're getting blown back by all the power here. And we get a little backstory as to why the necromancer wants to do this. So apparently he was a painter of sorts, and he was painting a portrait for the Queen of Hearts. She was less than satisfied, as we see her back here. Now the painting's kind of blurred out, and I have some maybe reasons for all of this, and I'll get to those later. But yes, as punishment for her displeasure, she goes ahead and captures the painter's family and beheads them. And he makes them makes sure he notices this, and so this is why he wants to take out the queen. He wants to exact his revenge. However, he's going a little overboard. Like, he's going after everybody in his path. So we see Tigger come over, and he's also furthering distracting, while Alice sneaks up, launches the holy water, and it makes contact. And so, yeah, it hurts him something fierce, and he just kind of sludges on down into a big goopy mess. And everybody recovers, and all is all hunky-dory as they later gather back with the governor. And they're all having a merry old time, right? The kidnappings have stopped. The demons are no longer being summoned. Same with the Walking Dead. So everything's all good. And they're a little confused as to what he has against the queen, being that she is now being described as basically a vegetable. Like, she doesn't do much of anything. She's just kind of there. Which is definitely different from what we've seen so far. So, I wonder what's going on here. And so it's just like, well, based on what happened to him, nobody blames him for holding a grudge so much. And we get a little backstory about what happened. So, we see how the Queen of Hearts used to be, while Alice was, this is more like in the story that we're familiar with, whether it's the old animated Disney cartoon or the book, what have you. But yeah, Alice is face to face, and she's that tyrant. But she gets defeated when Snow White comes in and takes over. And she is captured. She is allowed to live, but her powers are greatly reduced. And that is when her land gets split up between the 5 governors here. And then, so we get that story, but then we're focused on Piglet, and they're like, hey, who sent you to come help us out? Piglet's like, nobody, I sent myself. And Tigger gives him a lot of shit, like, why would you do that? That's such a dangerous, reckless move. And Piglet just is like, hey, look, man, I was tired of being the one getting saved all the time. I wanted to help some people out for a change. But they don't really get to linger on this for too long because their area gets attacked. The Queen of Hearts has now made her move and is attacking everybody within her own lands. And so they're like, oh shit, we gotta go. So they break out and start fighting. We see Tigger over here. He's fighting with a lot of guards. Piglet joins along with Alice. Hare and Rabbit are just like, oh, fuck this. And they go ahead and escape. And we see Tigger continuing along with Alice. And then Alice throws a little door portal out. And then they go through and the portal closes behind them. Now, there is somebody missing from this scenario. And I bet you can guess who. And they all meet up at their rendezvous spot after we're given information about how the Queen of Hearts has sealed all entrances to and from Wonderland. So nobody can get in, nobody can get out. So they have their little rendezvous area, and they're trying to figure out what the hell happened when Alice is like, wait, where's Piglet? And that's when Pooh interjects on Tigger's story again. And like, oh my god, they captured Piglet? And Tigger says, well, we're pretty sure that he's being held captive. Unless you fought back, everybody was being held hostage. And that's what Alice goes on to also bolster as far as the explanation there. And then we're given information how they came to this doorway to come get reinforcements. So they kill the guards that are protecting the door, manage to go through, and that's where they come into where we meet them in volume 4, where they intervene with the execution of the 4, Pooh and company, and that kind of catches us up there. And then we're also given information that the governor was killed by the queen. And I'm wondering, okay, does he get killed because he is like in control or command, or is it just like he was held hostage until face to face with the queen and then she goes, or are we kind of breaking a little bit here and not everybody who was captured was held hostage? Because we know he's not going to fight back. All he really cares about is partying, maybe relaxing a little bit. So he's certainly not fighting anybody. So my guess is he's just killed because he was one of the governors. Because, yeah, we see off with his head there. And so Pooh's like, okay, well, Piglet's definitely in Wonderland. We got to go now. And Alice is like, yep, let's get a plan together. Let's go. And then the captain's like, nope, we're not doing that. Nobody's authorized to do so. It's too dangerous, and we need more intel on this at the moment. Pooh, of course, is like, come on, man. One of our own is there. We got to go help him out. And the captain's like, nope, for now, we are waiting for Snow White's call. Speaking of Snow White, she is talking with Eeyore as she looks over the destruction of the city over here and trying to figure out what to do next. And she's like, okay, you know what? Send out a message. I have a plan. And we see this redheaded writer come on over and talks to the captain. It's like, we need you. We have some urgent matters to attend to. The queen has left on her own. And she's like, well, of course. Let's not make it too easy. And so Christopher Robin's like, what are your orders before you head out? She says, everybody stay put and wait for further commands. Just heal up for now. And then as we see Snow White and Eeyore head out on their own, and they're going to go meet with the Queen of Hearts. And meanwhile, the captain's getting all the Red Riders all suited up, geared up, get them on horses, and send them out after the queen. Like, go protect your queen, because the captain's worried that Snow White is just going straight to her death. And so now Winnie over here, he's just like, no, we gotta go. I can't just sit here and wait for orders. I gotta go save Piglet, which has been consistent with his motives. The last 4 issues. So yeah, he's definitely he's a good friend. He doesn't want to leave his buddy hanging. And Tigger reminds him, like, look, our orders are to stay here. And he's like, I can't just do that. I made a promise to my friend. I'm not going to abandon him. And Humpty comes in and he's trying to talk about how Snow White knows what's best. We need to trust her and stuff like that. And so then a bicker goes on between everybody, between Alice, Winnie, and Humpty, as we see Snow White walking through some debris and coming face to face with the Queen of Hearts. And that is where our story ends. Now, I have I have some thoughts here. I think these two are basically like one and the same here. I think we have like in Dragon Ball Z with Kami and Piccolo, how they're two halves of the same person. I think that's what we're going for here, being that we keep getting told that the Queen of Hearts was like a vegetable, that she was defeated by Snow White and stuff like that. And if you look at the two here, they look awfully similar. Now we saw from behind, you could just see the face of the Queen of Hearts. She was a little wrinkly, like you saw some wrinkles in her neck and a little on her face, and they are not there anymore. And like her overall hair is very much styled just like Snow White's and stuff like that. And I don't know if that is what we're supposed to interpret, like that they're kind of like two halves of the same coin, where like Snow White, her unwillingness to act in war, she's like really kind of indecisive. She's like the peaceful side of Snow White, whereas this is like the malicious side of Snow White, where she is just pure evil. So it's like pure good, pure evil, and together they kind of make one balanced person, but separate they're just they're two extremes, right? I don't know if that's the angle we're going for, because just having them both side by side like that, I kind of wonder, because we never see the Queen of Hearts' face either. She is always in that mask, and then that picture is also blurred out. And I'm kind of wondering if we're just trying to hide the identity for that reason. Let me get to it here. As we, I don't even know if my camera's going to pick it up, to be honest. But yeah, she's over here, and we can see some wrinkles on here. But yeah, she's like looking at this portrait, and it's like blurred out. And that's not my camera. That is the picture blurred out. So I think we're trying to keep her identity secret, because that is supposed to be the reveal is like this is actually Snow White as well. And maybe that's why Snow White or the Queen of Hearts is after Snow White so much. And maybe the item that they were after in Volume 4 that they retreated after getting, that maybe was the original Queen of Hearts in that, because it looked like it was holding somebody in there. So that's where I'm kind of thinking things are. I could be way off. Like maybe I'm reading way too far into it. I don't know. But that's kind of my thoughts. And I would like to see the explanation if it is like a Kami and Piccolo situation. How did we get there? I'm very curious on that. I mean, we have all sorts of magic and stuff like that in here, so I'm sure that'll likely be the excuse. But I'm curious, and I'm looking forward to reading more on this. Now, we definitely have some flaws within it, but this has been a very interesting and strong series for me. I've been very invested in these characters and wanting to see more about them. This one overall, I'd say is a good 7 out of 10. I could be maybe talked into it a little bit higher, but I think a little bit more attention to some of the details would help it out a little bit. And overall, I think the characters within the series, for the most part, act like they should. You know, we saw Tigger when he got reunited with his friends. He's that bouncing, colorful, happy person that we're very used to seeing. But when it comes to fighting, you know, he's a person of action, and I'm okay with that being something that gets flipped on. I think the only time that I've had issues with character breaks has really been Winnie the Pooh. We saw it once in issue 1 where he's just like throwing some random person through a wall or a window, and then again when we get the backstory of Rabbit. What Winnie did to kind of piss off Rabbit. I'm like, yeah, I think Rabbit's in the clear on that one. I think Pooh fucked up on that. So, but overall, yeah, I've been very satisfied with this and very interested in how all of these IPs are interacting with one another. It's been very interesting, and it's been something I've genuinely been enjoying. And because of stuff like this, I've been checking out some of the other works by Nicholas Mueller, so I'm looking forward to reading more. But If this looks like something that would interest you, check the link in the description where you can get a copy for yourself, or at least 2 to follow for any second chance campaigns that may arise. But that is all I have for today, guys, so until next time, take care, and God bless.